Welcome to this activity guide for the test skill Identify for mathematics tests. The first objective is that test questions are built on key concepts called competencies. The second objective is to determine your ability to master this skill, which, like any skill, can be improved through practice. And the third objective is to determine when to move on to the next training activity. Each test question is created by subject area experts who use as their guide key concepts or competencies. Be sure to check to see if your test is built on all of the competencies we'll discuss in this guide. If not, this activity still provides practice for those that do. The first competency is numbers. A question built on numbers might test your ability to work with numbers in various forms. You can expect to be tested on operations and to compare numbers. Understanding numbers also includes knowing the order of operations. Do you remember "Please, my dear Aunt Sally"? Questions might also test your ability to determine place value, round to the nearest place value, and estimate. A common error when identifying a numbers question is thinking that every question could fall under this category. However, there are specific characteristics that make the other four types of questions different. Once you're familiar with the other four competencies, our recommendation to combat this error is to consider the other competencies first. Let's look at a sample test question and see if it's built on this competency, numbers. Well, there certainly are numbers in this question, but is it based on the competency numbers? No, it's not. The key concept is central tendency, which is the average, so the competency is data. We'll look at some more examples of data in just a moment. What do you think about this example? What is the key concept or competency being asked? Percent, yes. So this is an example of a numbers question. The second of the 5 math competencies is algebra. Questions based on algebra concepts might be challenging to solve, but they're some of the easiest to identify. One way is to look for algebra symbols or variables, quantities that can be changed. Variables are used to make math statements called equations. These compare two expressions. Algebra is also used to make sense of position in space. To help us understand this concept of position in space, our math teachers use terms like ordered pairs for position and slope for the direction through space. And they did this on the coordinate plane. Do you remember the coordinate plane? X on the horizontal axis and Y on the vertical axis. These provide a way to determine position of an object and its movement. If there's a shape or picture on a coordinate plane, the tendency might be to identify algebra as a geometry question. So to combat this error, focus on the question. Oftentimes these questions are simply about the shape, but they are there to explain algebra. For example, what's the concept of slope all about? Well, the shape in this case, in this line, is being used to demonstrate direction of movement, and that's algebra. In some cases, algebra can help solve more complicated numbers problems, but again, most algebra questions are very easy to identify. The third competency is geometry, which, as you know, can be thought of as shapes. Here are some examples of two-dimensional shapes. Cubes and pyramids are examples of three-dimensional shapes. A common error when trying to identify geometry questions is that sometimes geometry looks like measurement. To combat this error, ask yourself, is knowledge about the shape required to find the answer? If so, it's geometry. Here's a typical example. What is being tested here? It's the knowledge of triangles. So in this case, the angles add up to 180 degrees. This question is about geometry. The fourth competency is measurement. And if we think about it, to make sense of our world, we label and measure just about everything. We've even created standard units like inches and pounds to measure sizes and quantities. Oftentimes these things are measured with scales. So expect that measurement might be related to height, weight, distance, and rate of speed, units. Measurement questions might look like algebra, especially if you're measuring to set up a proportion. But to combat that error, focus on the units. If the units are flowers or cars, it might be an algebra question. However, if the unit's related to height, weight, distance, or speed, well, that's measurement. For example, what are the units here? Are they related to measurement? The fifth competency then is data. When numbers are grouped to explain the past or present, that's called statistics. A common use of statistics is finding central tendency. These statistics are used to determine what tends to be in the middle. You likely remember that mean, median, and mode describe that central tendency in different ways. Remember the sample question earlier? The keyword average indicated that this is a data question. Probability is the term used when statistics are used to make predictions about future events that might be probable or possible. Expect your skill to interpret data from charts and tables to be tested. A common error is not recognizing the key words in the test questions like mean, median, and mode. The way to combat this error? Learn the terms, the key words, and practice searching for them in the questions. In fact, scanning for keywords helps identify all competencies, not just in math. Let's look at a sample test item. See how long it takes you to scan through and identify the key word. Did you find it? Now, this is an essential skill because, as we discussed in the workshop, key words help you decide when to invest in time in a question. Now here's a final look at the competencies. There are questions at your training site designed specifically to measure your knowledge in each section. After you determine your level of knowledge, you can then more efficiently review and study for the test. So, how much time will it take to apply this skill to every question on your test? Well, those who have trained before you report 5 seconds or less. Identify is the first skill in the TestCamp problem-solving system. Practice this skill on all types of questions to empower your test confidence.